we need it. Here on Kababayan LA, we explain immigration laws for you.
This American Dream segment is brought to you by Aquino & Lowe Law Firm, answering your immigration questions.
So if you're staying here illegally in the U.S., there is hope for you, because that's what we're going to be talking about today on the show with Attorney Alison Aquino. Hello and welcome to Kababayan LA.
Good afternoon.
So prosecutorial discretion, what is this about? Layman's term, please.
Prosecutorial discretion is essentially the authority of immigration to decide to either not enforce the immigration laws or to decide to what extent they wish to enforce the immigration laws.
And why is this good for people who stay here illegally?
Well, this is an issue right now because on June 17th, the head of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement issued 2 memorandums reminding its officers about this notion of prosecutorial discretion. And essentially, the memos remind its officers what the priorities are of the Immigration Service and reminding them that there are limited resources, okay? That the priorities of immigration are national security, border control, integrity of the immigration system. And although there are a lot of people who violate the immigration laws, immigration does not have the resources to enforce those immigration laws against every single person who violates
So
the
they
laws.
can't be just trigger happy and just arrest anyone who's staying here illegally?
Well, they can, but that's what the prosecutorial discretion means, is that they don't necessarily need to be trigger happy.
Okay,
Exactly.
and so who benefits from this?
Well, essentially, individuals, as you know, a lot of individuals are being placed into removal proceedings. A lot of people are very worried about being caught by the Immigration Service and being detained. And so for individuals who don't necessarily have an avenue for relief, you know, they may not be married to a U.S. citizen, they may not have the ability to legalize their status. At a minimum, these memos remind immigration officers that they need to take a look at these other factors. So for individuals who are not in line with the priorities set by the Immigration Service, immigration officers are encouraged to at least take a look at other factors in determining whether they wish to enforce the immigration laws against an individual.
So what would you suggest now, knowing this, what would you suggest to those watching who are staying here without proper documentation?
Any individual who's staying here without proper documentation needs to understand that they do have the capacity, if questioned by immigration, to essentially ask for this type of discretionary relief. So you need to be able to plead your case. You need to be able to, for example, explain to the immigration that you've been here a long time, that perhaps you were brought here as a child and you were an innocent party, that you've been a good individual, you have no criminal convictions, perhaps there are health issues that the immigration needs to know about. And you're essentially asking for their generosity, in a sense.
Right, or consideration.
Correct.
But then at the same time, Alison, what happens? Like, are you arrested face-to-face that you can explain yourself right away, or are you sent a letter and then do you show up? Because some people just flee.
Well, there are many instances in which immigration comes into the life of an individual. And so it really depends on what that circumstance is and what avenue you need to pursue as far as submitting this request. But the authority of immigration, based on these memos, is very wide. As an example, one form of relief is cancellation of removal. In order to qualify, you have to be here in the United States for at least 10 years. So one of the things that you can request, and which makes clear in these memos, is perhaps you can ask the immigration to not start deportation proceedings against you until you hit your 10-year mark, as an example.
Right, okay.
Or, for example, for children who were brought here as a young child, who went to high school, who are now in college, those type of individuals would benefit by the DREAM Act, for example.
Right, and that is definitely good news.
And that's good news. And so you can point that out to the immigration officer and say, look, I would benefit under the DREAM Act. These memos are clear that I'm not the type of person that you necessarily want to use the resources of the Immigration Service and go through the hassle of putting me into deportation proceedings.
Well said, but I don't suggest that you do it on your own. You need a lawyer for that. So if you are staying here illegally, might as well be prepared and consult a lawyer. That's the number to call on the screen. If you want more information, the website is aquinolaw.net as well. Attorney Alison Aquino, thank you so much for explaining that to us today.
Thank you, Janelle.
Magbabalik pa po ang Kababayan LA. Don't go away.